Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I'm Conrad, and this is the 45 Transfer Not So Stupid Perfect Windows. We're going to look at the other half of Manchester with Manchester United finishing, overall third in the league, 66 points, 66 goal scores, fifth overall, 36 conceded. Not bad. Just two behind where Liverpool were, one or two behind where City were.
Yeah.
Again, I think they're going to need some competition around left back. A little bit of center back helps alongside Harry Maguire because not sure that he's the real number one center back that they need. A little bit of help in the midfield and then maybe some depth up front.
Yeah, and obviously so had a great end after the restart last season. And I think there's a lot of positive building blocks for Ole to build off of. You are obviously still in the Europa League. Maybe they have a Europa League run. Maybe they even win a trophy. And then obviously qualify for the Champions League next season. So they have a lot of money to spend with an asterisk because obviously coronavirus has a lot of question marks around the amount of money you can spend. We've had for the last several weeks, about 2 weeks now, Jadon Sancho has been circling. We've talked about it in a specific Transfer Stupid video that he would be a risk to take, but to give something away. We have him in our perfect window because I think he would be great for them, but they have some other areas of concern that you mentioned that they would love to address as well.
Of money that in an area where in theory they do pretty well. They score okay. Across all competitions, they did well. I don't think they scored as well in the Premier League as they would have liked. And I think that comes down to some of that midfield challenge that they have. Once Bruno Fernandes came in, it was a big difference for them, right? Pogba was hurt so much. McTominay, they've got a lot of okay talent outside of Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, who are otherworldly. But
that's the issue, yeah. You have to bridge that gap. But to start in center back, that's one of the big areas of concern you want to have. We're looking at Jonathan Tah as potentially a guy from Bayer Leverkusen at £36 million release clause. Pretty tame in this market. He's 24 years old. He's had a lot of links in the last couple of years to making that big step up. I think he's very ready for it. They're still in their Europa League campaign, so that would have to wait for a little while before that could go through. He would be not the marquee guy. I think if you said no money's not a concern, who would you sign? Probably Kalidou Koulibaly would be probably your first choice guy. But I think considering that they do want to sign Sancho very seriously, they do want to add some stuff in the midfield. He's a very good center back option because I think Lindelof still has potential as being your first choice center back. So with Tah, you have now a competition where it's obviously not perfect, especially in comparison to Manchester City and Liverpool. You have Virgil van Dijk and Aymeric Laporte. You don't have a player who competes with them. He would be a good, I think, solid option coming from the German club, Bayer Leverkusen.
Next up, Jack Grealish. I think Villa want $80 million because that's going to be 80% of what they spent the season they came up and then barely avoided relegation. But a lot of talk of him moving. As an English player, he's going to command a lot of money, and he's very good in the midfield.
He is really the entire Aston Villa system right now. And if they are to sell him, they would need to spend a lot of money to replace him. So Villa obviously are going to want as much as they can to have to fill in the missing pieces for Jack Grealish. For United, this would be a bit of a risky move. In a perfect world, you'd have Jack Grealish as your backup to Bruno Fernandes because then you could really not have such a serious step down. Because I think the big thing we saw at the end of last season was, when Bruno Fernandes came off the pitch as a sub or when he didn't even play, I look at that Norwich match in the FA Cup in specific, they just could not create chances. They were back to the first half of the season Manchester United, and that's not something United fans want to remember. So in terms of depth, he's a very expensive backup option.
It's a lot of money for somebody not going to be
But this is a Manchester United team that has gone 7 years without a title. They want to compete for titles. You need a Jack Grealish on the bench to try and help you with that. Because the step down from Bruno Fernandes to whoever you have back there now, McTominay, Fred, they're just okay. They're not this kind of flair.
It's a big step down.
You need that creativity in the midfield, and Jack Grealish is the perfect guy for that, especially because he's English.
100%.
And English.
We've talked about Jadon Sancho in the past. That is a stupid amount of money. I mean, you're at £240 million on these three guys alone if you do these three.
But if I told you, pay £12 million for the next decade to get 15 goals, 15 assists every year, United are biting your hand off for that. Obviously, now it's a tough time to make that specific risk, especially because you don't know how he will do in the Premier League. He moved away from the Premier League about 3 years ago now from Manchester City to Dortmund.
For $8 million.
Yeah, he would be
$12 million.
Obviously a tremendous asset. There are some question marks to be raised. I saw an interesting point that has been discussed because he's obviously been talked about at length at going to United. In the Dortmund system, he always had Achraf Hakimi or Rafael Guerrero as wingbacks to support him on the flanks. At United, he'll have Wan-Bissaka as a fullback. That's a big difference in terms of attacking output as well as in terms of the positional ability of Wan-Bissaka, where he doesn't have the back three behind him to defend him. He can't support him as much. So there are a lot of question marks about Jadon Sancho. There are also a lot of certainties. He's young. He would be an electric commercial signing. He would add just a world-class option. I think it's easy to say that at that right-wing position. He would go into the Premier League, and he would instantly, I think, take that number 2 spot in terms of best right-wingers in the league behind Mohamed Salah.
Well, I just think of all those English players in that United side.
Back to that class of 92.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be unbelievable to see that many English players.
He would be tremendous, and these would be the perfect window, but as we always mentioned, can it actually happen? The deal's been going on for a
£240
while.
million. It's a stupid amount of money.
That is stupid.
We like to say here. That'll do it for us, Jack, Conrad. This has been the 45 Perfect Window Manchester United edition. Please like, subscribe, give us some comments, tell us what you think, and find us on the Twitter at the 45. Take care now.